Dan Utso. I'm an international trade and customs attorney with Dickinson Wright, one of the founding institutions of this summit on behalf of DW, Dickinson Wright, as well as our three sister founders, the Cross-Border Institute at the University of Windsor, represented here today by Bill Anderson, its chair, along with Marta Anderson and Lori Tanous, the Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies Center for Canadian Studies, represented by Chris Sands, and The Ohio State University's John Glenn College of Public Affairs, represented by Beth Ann Schulke-Leach, and a number of folks from the Buckeye Nation here today. We welcome you to day two. Since we are on a university campus, and in light of that, yesterday was a marathon day. I think the t-shirts are being printed right now that say, "I survived day one of the U.S.-Canada Summit." That was a marathon day of proceedings, to say the least, but a necessary part of what we're doing. The idea was that we would start day one with getting a full body of discussions as to the various issues confronting the Canada-U.S. relationship. We, of course, started yesterday with the concepts of general principles governing the relationships, tested that against some of the data and some great commentary from Nick Nanos, Bill Adams, and Gil Gauthier and others. Looked at the corporate perspective, kind of a more view from the trenches with Dave Olson at PNC, Dwayne Morrison at Calidus Capital, Scott Buer, which provided contributions throughout the day. I thought what was interesting about that session is that we talk so much in Canada-U.S. about the importance of advanced manufacturing, and I'm a car kid. I grew up cutting steel in Youngstown, Ohio, but also that so much of the work being done in Canada-U.S. right now are financial transactions and flows, to hear from those sectors as well. And then moved on into aerospace, transportation, skill certification, and then the transportation panel really started us on the dialogue part and then concluded the day with B2B and RCC. One of the things about last night's discussion, I just do this as a point of order for all folks. When you're on the stage, you can't see the crowd. The lights here are pretty bright. So if you're trying to send signals by body language, it's not working. It's really hard to see. The other was that we kept you a little bit longer last night and plied you with booze in order to facilitate that, is because the one thing you could see from the stage was the Armageddon coming in on the storm over the city of Columbus. So we were not going to send, there was one moment I was wondering, were we going to need a tornado shelter last night? But thank you for all of your participation yesterday. Let me just say that now we make a transition in this summit proceedings to really engaging in dialogue. And we'll do that first, of course, with remarks from His Excellency, the U.S. Ambassador to Canada, Bruce Heyman, and then on the back end of today with Undersecretary of State for the Economy, Energy, and the Environment, Catherine Novelli, which I joke a little bit, if you're the Undersecretary of State for the Economy, Energy, and the Environment, what else is left? What are you not the Undersecretary of State of? But we'll be getting that perspective as well as from Consul General Doug George and Quebec Representative Eric Marquis. So that'll be the element of the public sector, and I would include in that as well Deborah Myers from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. We'll be talking a little bit about known employer and some of the other movements. But today we'll also be transitioning from the things that we normally talk about in Canada-U.S. to some new areas, additive manufacturing, what's happening in the advanced manufacturing sector, regional wellness, which is just code for cross-border healthcare, issues such as what's happening in the IT, information technology space, and how do we move people and tax people in those sectors. So some of the things that we just typically don't hear about at Canada-U.S. events, as well as some folks speaking about innovation strategies. And we can't forget, of course, we had Matt Borges yesterday, Chairman Borges, talking about the view of the elections from the Republican side. Governor Blanchard will be here to speak about things from the perspective of the Hillary for America campaign over the lunch hour. So it's a full day, but we don't expect today to be quite as exhaustive or exhausting as yesterday was. We really want today to begin the dialogues as to what we're doing, and then concluding tomorrow with the workshops that we have to start, where all these ideas have been percolating, to now bringing that together. Catherine Friedman will continue to do the polling as we work to get feedback, and for those of you that were not here yesterday, we'll kind of start from scratch in terms of the explanations there. But as you start working through today, I just emphasize that I really don't expect another marathon session like that moving forward probably ever again, and just in the sense of the scope of it. But what we want to do now is start thinking about, what do we do next coming out of here? The ideas are here. We know that we're going to convene and talk. One of the great things that we saw were all the conversations, handshakes, hugs, and kisses out in the hallways, side meetings on aerospace, side meetings on regional wellness, but also what are the next steps in terms of planning. One of the initial thoughts is that a group of interested parties from this summit would convene in the fall to start framing these out a bit, what this looks like on paper, and then doing something in Washington right after the inauguration to actually present those to the new administration and Congress and saying, you folks are new and you don't have to think. 50 or 60 of the Canada-U.S. groups have come together and said, here's what we agree as our work plan. But that's suggested. The other idea is, the one thing that continues to float is that this is great, this idea of these groups coming together once a year, whether it's here at Columbus or not, that is certainly up for discussion, although it has been suggested doing this on a fall Thursday before a football Saturday may not be a bad idea. If you know how things get around here, it's usually a very busy time at The Ohio State University. But I just emphasize that we're transitioning now into more of the roll up the sleeves and getting to work. In order to do that, it is my privilege this morning to introduce from our economic development agency here in the state of Ohio, Glenn Richardson, who's the managing director for advanced manufacturing and aerospace. Glenn came, I mentioned earlier, and we talked a little bit yesterday, one of the first things Governor Kasich did upon assuming the governorship, I almost said the presidency, assuming the governorship, was to establish Jobs Ohio, which was we privatized the state's liquor economic development by bonding our liquor profits from the state liquor agencies. And one thing you can be assured of, there will always be profits from the liquor stores here in the state of Ohio. But we did that, and that created a fund, which in turn has been used to really lead one of the largest economic expansions in the state. Glenn is a great example of what we've done over at Jobs Ohio in the sense that we've brought folks with long-standing industry experience over, and Glenn, with prior career at Rolls-Royce and others, is one of the leaders of the aerospace industry and now is here attracting talent. So without further ado, I'll introduce Glenn and welcome you to the stage.
Good morning, Dan. Thank you for those kind remarks. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I think that it really is, first off, Dan, I want to thank you for really a well-constructed, organized summit. I really enjoyed the time I was able to be with you yesterday. I learned a tremendous amount. And I think it's really fortuitous that we have this summit here in Columbus, in Ohio. I really believe that while maybe our border actually runs down the middle of a lake, we still are very close, and we have a lot of opportunity. And I think that's probably no truer than in any industry other than aerospace, because of what Canada brings to the aerospace industry as well as what Ohio does. And I'd like to talk to you just a little bit about that. I don't want to bore you with a lot of statistics, but I think it is important that you understand really what the state of Ohio has, and that hopefully that forms a basis for how we can continue to talk about collaboration and cooperation as we go forward. So as Dan mentioned, Governor Kasich created Jobs Ohio. Yes, we have a wonderful funding source in that we use we have a 25-year franchise on the liquor sales, state-controlled liquor sales, which is great. We don't have to worry about raising money. What we do have to worry about is spending that, and spending that in a proper way to create economic development and grow jobs. We're focused on 9 strategic sectors at Jobs Ohio, and we have managing directors that have come out of industry to manage those sectors, to develop a strategy for how to go out and go to market in those industries, and look for the kernels of goodness that are going to provide sustainable jobs, not just propping up maybe the businesses that are here today, but helping to create the businesses that will carry us forward into tomorrow. Our 9 sectors include auto, IT, logistics, biohealth, financial, energy, petrochemical, advanced manufacturing and aerospace, and I have the responsibility for advanced manufacturing and aerospace, which really fires my jets. I'm an engineer by trade and spent 25 years in the aerospace industry with Honeywell, and it's really a pleasure to be able to have this responsibility for the state of Ohio. It comes with a lot of stress at times because you can never have enough jobs. Doesn't matter what the unemployment rate is, by the way. You know, it's like in any good business, you got to keep looking for more. And I think we've done a good job, but you know, the macro economy, we see a little bit of slowdown here in the 2016 as we've come through this long recovery since 2008, 2009. But we continue to focus, as I said, on sustainable opportunities. I just want to share with you a few of the statistics around aerospace, and then I'll introduce our next speaker. I know we're potentially running a little bit behind time, so I'll try to be brief. But I'm sure many of you know, but maybe you don't, for some of you don't, that the aerospace industry fundamentally was created here in Ohio. Back in 1903, the Wright brothers, Orville and Wilbur Wright, demonstrated heavier-than-air flight. Now, they demonstrated that flight down in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, because of the wind and the sand dune availability for flight, but they designed and developed that invention in a small bicycle shop down in Dayton, Ohio. And Dayton, Ohio today houses the U.S. Air Force National Museum, which is a wonderful facility. If you haven't been, I do really recommend it. It has all of the planes that have been in since the invention of the airplane on display there, and it's a great place to see how this industry in a very short time has evolved. So with the onset of the Wright brothers creating the aerospace industry today, Ohio is the #1 supplier state to Airbus and Boeing, the two preeminent civil airplane manufacturers in the world. They spend over $17 billion in the state of Ohio on an annual basis. One of those iconic companies is G.E. Aviation, which manufactures turbine engines down in Cincinnati. GE, interesting thing about GE is they got their start in one of the Wright brothers facilities, so they have a connection to the Wright brothers in that regard. But today we have over nearly 600 aerospace firms in the state, including GE Aviation, Parker Hannifin, Eaton, and the North American headquarters for Harrow DevTech, a Canadian firm. They manufacture nose gear. We also employ over 41,000 people in the private sector of that industry. We have over 45 colleges and universities with educational programs that support that industry. And when you look at the business climate here in Ohio, we have the lowest tax rate for manufacturing investment of any of the top 10 aerospace states. So we are truly business friendly. We're open for business. So yes, the airplane was invented here, but innovation continues to be the driving force in our industry. Together, the state and private companies invest over $10 billion in research and development. We have world-class research institutions like Wright-Patterson Air Force Research Labs down in Dayton, NASA Glenn Research Center up in Cleveland, Battelle Labs right here, headquartered in Columbus, Ohio. We're also engaged with the federal government with their Advanced Manufacturing Partnership Program 2.0. The Obama administration had the goal of establishing 70 national networks of manufacturing innovation institutes, similar to the Fraunhofer institutes that we have in Germany, which are really a best-in-class model. The state of Ohio is engaged with 4 of those today. We have LIFT, which is the Lightweight Innovation for Tomorrow, focused on lightweight materials. That got its start here with the Ohio State University and EWI, and is now headquartered up in Detroit. We've got IACME, which is the Institute for Advanced Composite Manufacturing Innovation, which is headquartered currently out of Oak Ridge National Laboratories, but it's coming up to Detroit to be co-located with LIFT. We also have NextFlex, which is up on the University of Akron area. Their engagement with NextFlex is focused on flexible electronics. And the first one that got launched in Youngstown America Makes, focused on additive manufacturing. So we are engaged with these 4. There's 10, I think, today launched on the 70, on the goal of 70. We're engaged with 4 of them. If you look at across those, they're primarily focused on advanced materials. Additive manufacturing certainly is a new process and a game-changing process in the manufacturing world, but really what's behind that also is a backbone on materials, because as that technology emerges, we will see far-reaching applications for it, which will move us primarily what started in the polymer space, plastics and whatnot world, moving into metals. So when we look at that technology landscape, the 3 pillars of strategy that I've put in place for Ohio are really try to leverage on that. So the first one is really trying to establish Ohio as a center of excellence in additive manufacturing, leveraging our America Makes relationship, GE Aviation's additive R&D center, which we participated in, and leading-edge machine manufacturers, including Cincinnati Incorporated, who, if you go out and look on their site, you'll see a nice printed Shelby Cobra, a 3D printed car. They have the big area additive manufacturing machine, one of its kind. It's very innovative, unique machine that can print large items. And they're right there in Cincinnati. Fabrisonic is right here in Columbus, that has some very innovative technology for manufacturing with additive using foil materials, and Maker Gear up in Cleveland that builds desktop 3D printers. So we kind of cover the space there with innovation. We're growing that industry. We're focused on that industry. We're looking to attract service bureaus, machine manufacturers, and practitioners into that space. I mentioned advanced materials. That's certainly the backbone of additive, but it's also a big focus for the automotive and aerospace industry, specifically carbon fiber. Carbon fiber is the strongest material known to man today, stronger than steel, and depending on how you're using it, 40 to 60% the weight of aluminum parts, so even better than steel. So today we're really bullish on carbon fiber. We believe Ohio, with its, we have an advantage in low-cost energy today. We sit on the Utica and Marcellus shale formations. Fracking has allowed us to tap into that natural resource. We're a net exporter of natural gas today, and we'll continue. And what that is doing to our market, our gas market, is fundamentally creating a very low cost, reliable energy source that'll be here for decades to come. So in manufacturing, typically there's a lot of energy intensity there. Carbon fiber is really at the upper end of that scale. It takes a lot to take a polymer feedstock and carburize it and turn it into these carbon fibers. So we think we have a natural opportunity there. We have one of 4 feedstock plants in the country here in Ohio, up in Lima. We also are very in close proximity to the aerospace and automotive industries. I mentioned that we're the #1 supplier state on the aerospace side. We're also the #2 manufacturer of automobiles. And in this country, we have a thing called the CAFE standard, corporate average fuel economy. And today, that standard runs around 27 miles per gallon. Over the next 10 years, that's got to double to 54 miles per gallon. In the last 10 years, it's improved 5 mph, miles per gallon. So going from 27 to 54 in the next 10 is going to be a huge challenge. Carbon fiber, lightweight materials will play big in that space, as well as advanced propulsion. We have the resources and the assets here in Ohio to facilitate the development of the technologies, especially on advanced materials and carbon fiber, to help the automotive companies reach those milestones. And the third focus really is on autonomy. We hear a lot today about self-driving vehicles and whatnot, the Internet of Things, connected factories, but in the aerospace world, it's really all about unmanned aerial systems. Right here at the Ohio State University, we are engaged with the FAA Center of Excellence on unmanned aerial systems research. We have the Ohio UAS Center that's engaged in helping to expand and develop the unmanned flight. We have several designated flight areas, and we have a number of component and system and service providers that are all focused on the development and advancement of this emerging technology. So additive manufacturing, advanced materials, unmanned aerial systems are the three pillars of our aerospace strategy here in Ohio. Not to say that we're not focused on part manufacturers and other suppliers into that industry, but we're trying to have a strong, if you will, technology platform that ensures that as we move forward into the future that we continue to lead and remain as the #1 supplier into that industry. So Ohio was, is, and will continue to be a great state for aerospace, and I hope that through this conference that we're able to identify some specific steps that we can take to improve the Ohio-Canada collaboration, to grow the strategic importance of aerospace in the region, and help us as a region to become a more prominent player in the global aerospace industry.